Hey, it's me, your boy Blue Getsuga, and I'll be doing another Yu-Gi-Oh! Tier analysis video. And this time I'm going to be doing Batteryman, Majespector, and Destiny Heroes. I previously recorded this video before, but due to some issues, I had to re-record it. I mean, to be more specific with blurring things, because the new YouTube blur tool kind of sucks. Anyways, let's get right into this. Voice crack. Batterymen are a very old archetype, I think stemming even before GX, I think. Anyways, it's a thunder archetype and they're based off of batteries. For the pros, we have it can OTK, they can swarm, and they have good spells and traps. And that is actually pretty impressive given the time that said spells and traps have came out. And for the cons, they need more monsters because this deck doesn't have that many great monsters. Like you have 9 vaults, you have I mean this deck basically doesn't have all that many monsters to actually work with or at least that many good monsters to work with to the point where you still have to run 3 of the flip effect batteryman monster, and that card is obviously very slow. This isn't that consistent due to them having one searcher, that being 9 vault. The newest Batteryman kinda circumvents that problem, since you can just send your 9 vault from the deck to the graveyard and then use one of your 4 Monster Reborns to summon it and get a search, but that's still not all that great. It can't play through too many negates because, this deck isn't all that consistent. They lack defensive cards, and this deck's a bit slow. I would say these three just from these three, you can kind of tell that Batterymen are kind of like a glass cannon deck. They don't OTK all that consistently, and if you fail, you kind of die. Unless your opponent's playing a deck that doesn't OTK. So I would say it's a tier 3.5 deck just because of that. Next, we have Majespectors. Majespectors are an Arc 5 archetype. They're a pendulum spellcaster deck, and they're a wind attribute. And it is important to point out that they're wind spellcasters because of their spells and traps. Also, they cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects, which is actually pretty insane that this deck still somehow sucks despite that. I mean, they suck now, but before they didn't. Anyways, to the pros. Can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects, that's always really good. Great search power, again, really good. They have great spells and traps, and they have a great control playstyle. And now for the cons. Master Rule 4 and 5, because that essentially helped kill this entire archetype. Kieran is banned. There's no inherent spell and trap negation. You only have monster removal as well as monster effect negation, which isn't all that bad. It is bad going second, especially considering that a single Ash can technically end your whole career with this deck, and then it can barely go through negates. Also susceptible to cards like Zombie World, and susceptible to cards like Evenly Matched and Lightning Storm. Because if you lose your scales in this deck, you kind of insta lose. And this deck basically has way too many weaknesses to work with. And on top of that, like I said, loses to cards like Zombie World as well as Lair of Darkness. Because for context, a lot of the spells and traps in the deck rely on you tributing a wind spellcaster for cost. And if you actually, change their attribute or typing, this deck is kind of screwed. since you won't be able to actually use your spells and traps properly. Anyways, I would say that this deck is a tier 3.5 deck. At first I thought it was a tier 4 deck until I tried playing it, and it actually did a little bit better than I thought it would. I mean, still bad, but it's better than I thought. Next and lastly, we have Destiny Heroes. Destiny Heroes are a GX archetype. They were supposed to be edgier versions of Elemental Heroes until Evil Heroes became a thing. Anyways, let's get started. Master Rule 5. Good extra deck monsters, you have good spells and traps. You have decent main deck options. I say decent instead of good or great, because their best main deck monsters are Drill Dark and I think Plasma. But Plasma is mostly useful in the Hero Match decks. Anyways, they desperately need to open with a way to fusion summon, and that's one of the problems with this deck, especially since this is a fusion archetype. Plus, you don't really want to use Poly first turn. You mostly want to get to your Fusion Destiny, which isn't searchable in this deck, nor is there a way to actually search Fusion Destiny. I actually wish Konami would actually make a way to search Fusion Destiny as well as your Poly. Because with the way this deck is now, you kind of neg a lot just so you can Fusion Summon in this deck. Almost to the point where it's not worth it. But it is what it is. This deck can brick, and by that, you can just open up with a whole bunch of useless Destiny heroes, and you wouldn't be able to do much with them unless you're able to summon both of them on the field, and if you can go into your, I guess you could say, Hero Link monsters. And using your Hero Link monsters, you can actually, you could open up different kinds of plays, and also make setup plays. And lastly, they can't play through too many negates. Destiny Heroes, they are, to be completely honest, they're a mediocre archetype. They're decent and they're a fun deck to play, but they're not all that great. Which is why I'd say this deck is also a tier 3.5. Also, there's a lot of tier 3.5s in this one video. Anyways, tell me what you think about these three decks. It's me, your boy Bluegetska, and I'm out.